Let's talk about a guy who is a true ghost in the machine of the internet. A man who, depending on who you ask, is either a hero, a villain, a genius, or a con artist. But no matter what you call him, he's a figure who literally changed how the web works.
To some people, he was first and foremost a hacker, one of the OG digital renegades from the Wild West days of the early internet.
To others, though, he was a visionary, an entrepreneur who saw where the internet was going years, maybe even a decade before Silicon Valley caught on.
And of course, to the United States government, there was only one word for him: criminal. The kingpin of a massive global conspiracy. But the label that really stuck, the one that defined his public image for years, it was this: Hollywood's #1 enemy. So who is the real Kim.com? Well, let's get into it.
Okay, so before the whole larger-than-life Kim.com persona, there was just Kim Schmidz, a kid growing up in Germany. And right from the jump, he was incredibly good at two things: computers, and maybe more importantly, telling a really good story about himself.
And this whole myth-making thing, it started super early. He'd tell people he went to this fancy elite boarding school in a castle. The reality? Not quite. Public high school. And he even spent some time living in a home for troubled youth. This huge gap between the story and the truth, you're going to see that's a pattern that basically defines his entire life.
Back in his early hacker days, he picked the name Kimball. Now, this is pretty telling. It's a direct nod to the main character in the movie The Fugitive. You know, the guy who's wrongfully accused and on the run. So from day one, that's kind of how he saw himself, the misunderstood hero who was being hunted. And his knack for spinning a story was just next level. Check this out. He famously claimed he hacked Citibank and then, like a modern-day Robin Hood, wired $20 million to Greenpeace. I mean, what a story, right? The media went absolutely nuts for it. The truth? Well, Citibank did get hacked, but it was by Russian hackers. And trust me, they kept every single penny. Kim was just a master at jumping on a headline and making it all about him. His early resume is just wild to look at. In 1998, he gets busted for trading pirated software. But what does he do? He flips that notoriety and starts his own cybersecurity company. The sales pitch was genius. Hey, who better to protect you from hackers than me? He sells it for a fortune at the peak of the dot-com bubble, then gets convicted again for insider trading and just bolts to Hong Kong to figure out his next move. And that next move, cooked up in Hong Kong back in 2005, would change everything. It was the thing that would make him an internet legend and a prime target for the feds. It was called Mega Upload. You really have to understand how groundbreaking this was for the time. The whole idea was so simple, but so far ahead of its time. This is way before Dropbox or Google Drive were a thing for most of us. Mega Upload was basically a digital locker in the cloud. You could upload a giant file, get a simple link, and share it with anyone. It was fast, it was easy, and as people figured out really quickly, it was absolutely perfect for sharing pirated movies, music, you name it.
And when I say it got big, I mean it's hard to even wrap your head around just how big. At its absolute peak, Mega Upload was getting 50 million users every single day. That insane number of users made it the 13th biggest website on the entire planet. Just think about that for a second. Bigger than almost any site you can think of today.
But this is the stat that is just mind-blowing. The site got so massive that it was responsible for 4% of all traffic on the internet. 4% from one single website. This wasn't just a site, it was a global empire. So you can see exactly where this is going, right? When you're that big and you're basically giving away Hollywood's entire catalog for free, a showdown isn't just possible, it is guaranteed.
And Kim? Oh, he wasn't hiding from the fight. He was pouring gasoline on the fire. In 2011, he drops this thing called the Mega Upload song. It's this wild music video with huge stars. We're talking Kanye West, will.i.am, Snoop Dogg, all singing about how great Mega Upload is. It was a massive, public middle finger to the entire entertainment industry.
By this point, he's living this absolutely crazy lifestyle. He's in this giant mansion in New Zealand, has a fleet of luxury cars with vanity plates, and apparently he was the #1 ranked Call of Duty player in the world. He wasn't some hacker in a basement anymore. He was loud, he was rich, he was flashy, and in Hollywood's eyes, he was the perfect bad guy.
And when you paint a target on your back that big, eventually someone's going to take the shot. The U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, they decided it was time to shut the whole operation down.
And then it happened. January 20th, 2012. The whole empire comes crashing down. At dawn, helicopters with heavily armed special forces swarm his mansion, all at the request of the FBI. And this wasn't just in New Zealand. Raids were going down in 8 other countries at the exact same time. His assets were frozen, servers unplugged, and just like that, Mega Upload and that 4% of the internet just vanished.
The legal battle that came next is, well, it's pretty complicated, but here's the basic breakdown. Kim's team argued, hey, Mega Upload was just a tool, like a digital storage locker. We can't be responsible for what people put inside it. But the prosecution's case was totally different. They said, no, this thing was a criminal enterprise from the very beginning, built for piracy. They even claimed his company paid users for uploading popular illegal files and intentionally dragged their feet on takedown requests to get more traffic.
But that raid, that was hardly the end of the story. If anything, it was just the beginning of a legal odyssey that has now dragged on for more than a full decade.
So for more than 10 years, Kim.com has been in New Zealand, fighting tooth and nail to avoid being extradited to the United States. And just when it looked like he was finally out of options, the extradition order got signed, he suffers a major stroke. So now his health, his future, his entire legal fate, it's all completely up in the air.
So what's the big takeaway here? I think this quote from a journalist who followed the story for years just hits the nail on the head. He basically held up a giant mirror to a massive industry that had totally slept through the digital revolution. They weren't trying to innovate, they were just desperately trying to turn back time.
And that really leaves us with a big, messy question at the heart of all this. Was Kim.com some kind of digital freedom fighter, pushing technology forward whether we were ready or not? Or was he just a brilliant self-promoter who made himself into the perfect, larger-than-life bad guy for an entire industry that was terrified of the future? The real answer, as always, is probably somewhere in between.